discussing heatedly sometimes the first year of François Hollande's presidency. Not many reasons to smile for the president. With me on the set, Anne Bagamary, who is the Europe editor of the International Herald Tribune, and Elisabeth Moutet, a columnist for the Sunday Telegraph, Philippe Moreau-Chevrolet, who is a columnist with the Nouvelles Observateur, and Christophe Robit, who is our European affairs editor here at France 24. One interesting topic that has come up over the past month, but especially recently, Christophe, is the issue of a so-called friendly tension between France and Germany. Those are the words used by François Hollande. Can there be a friendly tension, especially between France and Germany at a time of European crisis?
From what I saw in Brussels, from what I hear in Brussels, is that Merkel doesn't work very well, that's for sure. After 1 year of Merkel, some things aren't working. I think there's a problem of trust. It's really a problem of trust. It's not a problem of belonging to different parties, because when you look at the best couples, they usually came from different parties, Helmut Kohl and François Mitterrand. But there is a problem of trust. Germany doesn't believe that France is serious about reforming itself, and the French don't believe that Germany thinks about Europe. They think they're selfish. That's what was written in a leaked report that caused a bit of a storm in Germany, a report from the Socialist Party. So yes, there is a problem of trust. In terms of characters, when you look at Hollande and Merkel, they're quite similar. They don't like conflicts. They're quite diplomatic. But I think that Merkel got so used to working with Sarkozy, quite like this sort of bully attitude. I think she liked it sort of, and it's not working. Do we need attention? I think it's important to put all the problems on the table. But if Hollande wants to have his voice heard in Europe, the first thing he must do, I think, is to repair the ties with Germany. That's essential. And
Bagamary, obviously, it seems that the future of the relationship, but also maybe of François Hollande, hinges on the results of the next German elections in that case.
In a way, I completely agree with my colleague that the France-Germany relationship is crucial, and I think there can and should be a tension between them, because especially with this French government, and especially with the debate of growth versus austerity going on, not just in Europe, but around the world, this is a very useful debate to have within Europe between the two strongest countries. The problem is that France is not a strong country. The French economy is not strong. It's perfectly true to say that the Germans don't think the French are serious about reform because they haven't advanced quickly. And whatever reforms they have made aren't working yet. So what you have is a weak country saying, do it like we do. Angela Merkel can stand up and say, austerity works and we have the economy to prove it. François Hollande cannot say the same thing about growth or reform. So I think that is the first order of business, is fix what's wrong in France and show some results. Then France will be able to stand up and really take its place as a worthy partner, even one with tension to Germany. But until that happens, he can talk all he wants. It's not going to happen.
It's important to remember that at the beginning of his presidency, François Hollande chose to team up with Italy and Spain, hoping that would sort of give the pro-growth camp a stronger voice. And that was perceived, really, in Germany as a sort of betrayal. So maybe that wasn't quite successful, I believe. He should have been more blunt with Merkel, but not try to team up with the Spanish and the Italians and say, look, we're here, 3 countries versus you. I think that didn't pay off.
And not just that, but he did this at the Euro Summit last fall, and he did this in a way that in the beginning his people were going behind the back of the Germans to do this, and they ended up with 3 weak people being sort of not working out, and Merkel making friends with Cameron. And the strange sort of British-German alliance has been sort of growing and flowering, and then Mrs. Merkel has invited to her home David Cameron, to actually a Schloss belonging to the Bundeskanzlerei, Mr. Cameron and his entire family, and British-German relations, which were frozen for a long time, are now at the best that they've been since the death of Prince Albert. I mean, Hollande managed to achieve that. It is quite incredible, and it's not good for France. So
hopefully, we hope
he hasn't succeeded.
Hollande's hope is that Angela Merkel will lose the next elections and will be replaced by a more socialist-friendly government.
First of all, he will be very
happen,
surprised if she loses. First of all, it's not sure that she will lose. And
No,
second,
that's not sure. I agree with that.
Gerhard Schröder's reforms in 2009-10.
But the fear we have in France is that we have a strong anti-German feeling that is coming up in France from the French population. And that's a problem.
It is manufactured by ministers in France who were left...
Maybe it's manufactured, but when you see TV ads speaking German, talking about the qualities of German products, it's not helping. There is a strong anti-German feeling.
Yeah, and there's also a very
anti-German feeling
worrying,
is
really.
unconscionable.
Really.
It was found by people who were trying.
It's not Hollande didn't invent it.
They were trying to derail the anti-Hollande sentiment. At least Hollande spin doctors believed that it would help, which is why they let them speak so long.
No, that's not true. They didn't
and
do
because
it
he gives this image of weakness, and his minister are saying those things against Germany that are really very stupid. It is.
There are political disagreements, but the feeling, the anti-German feeling, is real. It's in the population. It's growing.
People want an anti-German feeling in the population, and frankly, I think this is completely
resent the Germans for being the model in Europe, the only model in Europe.
There's a lot of jealousy behind that.
And the Germans are asking the French to do some efforts.
Nobody's forcing people to buy German cars.
The irony is that France has a former German teacher as a prime minister who speaks perfect German and could really work
it's
as
not popular at all.
Bridge,
it's one of the most popular guys in history.
He's like the finance minister. We have a prime minister and a finance minister who basically are absent. We do not see them. We do not hear them. They have no influence whatsoever. And there are, someday there will be a reshuffle, but not yet.
We'll see about the reshuffle. One question, though, that's been there is the anti-austerity party, if you can call it, in France. On the left, we've seen a demonstration last Sunday. And this is also something that Hollande has to take into account.
These demonstrations are quite weak compared to the right-wing demonstrations against the gay marriage.
I agree, but even within his own party and probably within his own government, as we've seen, there are some people who are pressuring him from the left. And how much of a threat is it for him in the future?
For the next elections, it's a real threat. He has to take it into account. He tries to gain some time. Each time he talks on the TV, he tries to gain some time for his own agenda. The problem is nobody sees clearly what he wants to achieve. Once Montebourg will win the exchange over Dailymotion, he will win, for instance, but sometimes over Florange, he will lose. And you are left between the two possibilities. Either we have a right-wing government in some ways, otherwise we have a left-wing government, but we don't know. That's why I call him center-left. That's the best.
But many people call him weak, and maybe they long for Nicolas Sarkozy, who was maybe blunt, but seen as a leader, someone who had an iron fist.
I think probably any people longs for a true leader, someone who will essentially tell them, this is what we're going to do, and devil take the hindmost. Nobody likes to be agreed with all the time. Children don't like to be told all the time they're perfect and wonderful. They want to have standards set for them. They want to have a goal to shoot for. One of the criticisms that's leveled at Hollande all across the spectrum is that he's not really presidential. He's more like a Socialist Party chief, and he's trying to keep all of the factions happy. He can't do it. Maybe temperamentally it is not possible for him to do that, but politics are not about what you as a person feel. Politics are about what you as a person can project and get done. And if he can't keep all the parties happy and also lead the country, maybe he's got some lieutenants who can. Maybe it's time to look into his ranks and turn the baton over to somebody else for some of these tough portfolios.
The problem is that maybe one of the youngsters, such as Manuel Valls, will have the will to kill the president before its term and to take his place. That's possible. That's very possible. Manuel Valls is actually trying to gain control into the Socialist Party, and maybe it will get angry before time.
We'll have to see.
How you cannot do this because the Fifth Republic has got this constitution which basically freezes the president in place.
Yeah, sure, but there is a next election in 2017.
That's it, 4 years.
Right. Yeah. I just want to get to the issue of authority and leadership. Mali. France's war in Mali has been quite popular. There was a brief surge in the polls.
Very brief. And that's really surprising because I was wondering. But the thing about Mali...
Because it went rather smoothly. I mean, not many presidents can say they send their troops to war. Let's look at the Americans.
And it was the right thing to do. And it was the right thing. Let's not forget this. It was the right thing to do for several reasons. We were called by the government.
And you end up at 24% popularity?
And it did not help.
What a reward.
And it did not help.
Why?
I think he also did not play up the idea. He couldn't really get a coalition working in Europe the way Sarkozy did in Libya, for instance. And he did not sort of convey the idea that this was something that had any kind of effect in sort of shifting the balance of security or threats towards France. People would have been grateful for a longer period of time if they'd felt that it was part of a kind of sort of, something thought through about the dangerous situation that we were.
Again, there is no storytelling. There is no storytelling about it.
It was a good story to tell.
Yeah, there was a good story to tell. He could say, I want to restore the greatness of France. I don't know. I want to preserve our economical interest in Africa. I don't know what he could have told.
I want to preserve us from Islamism.
He could have said something else.
Yeah.
But it didn't work out.
He could have put it in context. He could have let people know what it meant for them. There was a wonderful line in, I think it was Libé, that talked about how the thing that Hollande and his government don't do well is the service après-vente, the after-sale service. They simply don't tell you what was good about what they just did.
You could see that with the gay marriage law, for instance, because he always wants to please everyone, but the reality is that he ends up pleasing no one at all, because he was so indecisive with his gay marriage law that even the pro-gay camp was like, come on, you should have, be more present in this.
Early on, there was an easy way to split the anti-gay marriage people, because most of them are actually not really against gay marriage. They're against gay adoption. And if early on he'd said, we're separating the two, he probably could have split this movement, which is probably the movement that got most traction, most popular traction since 1984.
But he didn't see it coming. I mean, many people see this gay marriage vote it was voted, but there were lots of demonstration, and as an example of
they're going to be more. I think this is an example of people not really believing that he's as good as his word. I mean, the law has been voted.
But he thought it would be a cakewalk.
Yeah, no, he did.
People have the feeling that he could change his mind, that somehow the law could be
if they scream loud enough, he'll give them what they want. There's,
but are these demonstrations really about gay marriage, or are they using this as a way to undermine his image?
It's a referendum against Hollande.
Part of the right, such as Anne-Elisabeth, are not agreeing with the fact that there is a socialist government in France, and that's each time we have this kind of demonstrations when the socialist
I'm really sorry, but on this, when I wasn't demonstrating, I'm looking at this. I work for a conservative paper where I'm a columnist, so I know what I choose. But you're perfectly allowed to go and sort of disagree on an issue. It is part of the democratic process.
They don't disagree with an issue. They disagree with the government. They don't want to have a socialist government in France.
If they split marriage and adoption,
and we have to accept it.
They could have avoided it.
There are 4 more years of a socialist government. That's the fact.
And they would have had a toothless gay marriage law then. I think they would have had problems with that.
They should have.
You can't pick and choose when you're talking about giving people rights. You can't then say you have rights to this, but you don't have rights to that. I mean, that's the whole problem with gay marriage right now.
You
should have acted quicker. You should have
decide
done it during
that
the first months.
There's no such thing as a right of children. You do not have the right to children. Children have rights. And
nobody wants a right to children.
No, we're not going to start
Let's not go on
debate
this
on gay marriage. I want to focus on the 4 more years. You mentioned earlier the example of Barack Obama, who could never fulfill all his promises, but as far as I remember, he was re-elected, which might give some hope to François Hollande, because after all, he has one thing for him: the next presidential elections are in 2017, and unless hell breaks loose or something major happens, he will be there until then, and he has time for him.
Well, it's entirely possible that with 4 more years, he will grow into the job, his people will grow into their jobs. The small steps that he's made in his first year will grow into big steps. They will learn how to communicate what they're doing, and the economy somehow or other. I mean, Barack Obama was helped enormously in his re-election bid by 2 things. First of all, the economy started to improve by baby steps, but it did start to improve. And second, he had a horrible opponent. Even though Mitt Romney squeaked through and Barack Obama did not have a landslide victory in terms of the popular vote, he was not a strong opponent. Now, if François Hollande cuts a break or catches a break on the economy, and the UMP can't put up somebody against him who looks like a more attractive candidate, he'll probably do fine.
If François Fillon is a candidate against him, he might lose. If Jean-François Copé is a candidate, he might lose. The only hope for the UMP is Nicolas Sarkozy for the time being.
Well, he would win now, and he would win big.
Yeah, maybe.
But what's really bad is that Marine Le Pen would come second. Hollande, if there were a case in which Sarkozy...
Maybe Marine Le Pen,
if we have
not together.
No, but really, we had several polls last week, and they said, first of all, if Sarkozy was running, then Sarkozy would come at, in the first round at 32%. Marine Le Pen would come at 23%. Hollande would be 18%. Now, that is not terribly good. That is not totally.
But it's a 5-year term, as you say. Let's remember that Sarkozy's first year in office wasn't great either. We all remember. I remember being here discussing the exact same story.
There has been a lot of quacks, for instance. There have been a lot of quacks.
I mean,
at the time,
the
yes.
Castrois
Quack.
Pauvron, how would you translate that, Mark? I don't remember. But the conclusion of the debate, I remember, was that he was not presidential either. So.
Yeah.
Right, that's true. But Philippe Morochet, if the phone rings tomorrow morning, it's François Hollande, says, I need some advice. My advisors are not good.
He can call anybody else than his current team. Okay, anybody. I can give him
what
a phone
would you
book
tell him?
of people working for him.
Yeah, but what would you tell him if you had 3 steps?
To tell something to the country about what he wants to achieve. To give some storytelling to the people, some sense about what he's doing. I want to achieve that. In 4 years we will be there.
He said
I will do that. No, he
People
didn't
don't
say
believe
it.
him.
Never
They don't
said
believe
it.
him.
No, he never said that. Each time he's talking on TV, he's going into details about what every member of his government is doing. It doesn't give any sense of what he's doing to people. They need to understand basically what he's doing.
He says he's
He has to tell us a story. He has to tell us a story about
And people said he
France.
was a plumber trying to fight a tsunami with a plumber's toolbox.
He's fighting a tsunami while explaining the current winds, the currents of the winds, the strengths of the winds, but not telling what he will actually do to stop the tsunami. So that's a problem. Yeah.
Perception is reality.
No, that's not true.
But-
Perception is not always reality. And I
but
work in the
you-
communication business.
Beyond your criticism of François, do you think that he can still reform the country in a way that would be rewarded by a re-election and even by the markets or the free marketeers?
I'm French and I would be happy if he did, because I do not want the country to go to hell at all. But I don't see, first of all, I think the personality, he's not somebody who, if he hasn't grown into this, which is basically a quasi-monarchic job, he's not going to. So I don't have much trust in his character. Second, the Socialist Party is a difficult animal to manage because they all disagree with one another. And he's composed his government out of people who hate each other's guts. The idea was to make every faction happy. The only way to do this is what François Mitterrand was doing, which is
composed like that.
To
Nicolas
be able,
Sarkozy did the same thing.
Yes, but you have to rule over these people with an iron fist. And frankly, he is not Mr. Iron Fist. And I don't think he can impress confidence abroad. And finally, this is somebody who speaks no foreign language, has practically not traveled abroad, and I don't think he knows what he deals with out there in the wide world.
It's
Quickly,
democracy.
in the wide world, can he turn Europe around and help Europe rescue him?
He's hoping that the new Italian Prime Minister, Enrico Letta, will help him. He sees in him a good ally. Now, as someone coming from a Nordic country, I was maybe thinking that this election meant that the French were ready to drop this monarch style of president, but clearly it's not the case. So it says also a lot about what the French expect.
We want a
from their
Scandinavian
president.
democracy with a Latin ruler. That's what we want, really. It's difficult to achieve.
Yeah.
Okay, on those
There's a
words.
sign of hope.
And we have
Elizabeth
we have a
is
Scandinavian.
still living in France. You didn't leave France, Elizabeth. And I will see this as a sign of hope.
Well, if we're going to hell in a handbasket, it is the prettiest handbasket you can go to hell in.
Well, on those love declarations, I will leave you tonight. Thank you for watching this debate here on France 24. It has been fun despite the gloom and doom for François Hollande after 1 year in office.